Good morning, everyone. For the continuation of the report, my topic is about formalism literary theory examples. I am Ms. Jenny T. Alfonso from MA English. Formalism is known for excluding or sidelining factors such as authorial intent and the cultural and socio-political background of a text from its study. Its preference for form, linguistic elements, and literary devices gives this school of literary theory its name. Formalism is a theoretical position that favors form over the thematic concerns within a text or its relationship within or with the world outside. The formalists argue that the study of literature should be exclusively about form, technique, and literary devices within a work of literature. Here are a few great examples to help you understand how these devices work in literature. The first one is the familiarization. Here is the description of an arrow being shot in William Golding's The Inheritors, 1955. The man had white bone things above his eyes and under the mouth so that his face was longer than a face should be. The man turned sideways in the bushes and looked at Locke along his shoulder. A stick rose upright and there was a lump of bone in the middle. Locke peered at the stick and the lump of bone and the small eyes in the bone things over the face. Suddenly Locke understood that the man was holding the stick out to him, but neither he nor Locke could reach across the river. He would have laughed if it were not for the echo of the screaming in his head. The stick began to grow shorter at both ends. Then it shot out to full length again. This is from William Golding, The Inheritors, page 106. What is defamiliarization? Defamiliarization is a term used in literary analysis and criticism. Essentially, defamiliarization involves exploring differences between literature and reality. It can mean drawing attention to something that is usually familiar, but making it seem alien, or else drawing attention to the act of writing itself and forcing readers to reckon with what makes something a work of art. Writers can use the familiarization in several different ways, but the effect is generally the same, an unsettling change in perspective that makes readers ask questions and consider art in new ways. At first, it can be a confusing experience since it is unlike most kinds of reading, but it has important merits. The familiarization can allow readers and writers to ask questions about what makes writing literature, what it means for a work to be immersive or not, and how literature and reality can and should intersect. Some examples of defamiliarization are humorous, while others are shocking, unsettling, or even temporarily confusing. Understanding defamiliarization can help readers get more out of text, see what writers are trying to achieve, and think more critically about literature as a whole. Defamiliarization is also common in writerly text, meaning texts that focus on their own literary mechanics and that use particularly expressive and unusual language. Another common way of creating defamiliarization is through stream of consciousness, where all of the character thoughts, feelings, and experiences are narrated in an extensive internal monologue, mimicking how people's thought processes work. Stream of consciousness writing is so different from standard narratives that it tends to cause readers to pause and reflect on what they are experiencing and the literary genre itself. This example The arrow being shot in William Golding's The Inheritors, 1955, was described in a clear, complete, expressive, and unusual manner. One is foregrounding. Foregrounding is the act of emphasizing a particular part of a literary work through the writer's linguistic choices, for example, using a particularly interesting literary device in order to make a line or paragraph stand out. One of the best examples uses the literary devices antithesis and parallelism as examples of foregrounding. It is found in Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. The novel's famous opening lines read, "It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven. We were all going direct the other way." The lines contrast best with worst and everything with nothing. By repeating the structure of the first line, he draws attention to all those which follows and force the reader to question what exactly makes this time so interesting. The word time so interesting. That is foregrounding. In a narrative or creative writing, a plot is the sequence of events that make up a story, whether it's told, written, filmed, or sung. The plot is the story and more specifically how the story develops, unfolds, and moves in time. And as we all know, the traditional plot structure starts with exposition, wherein the story begins by introducing the protagonist and other key characters, their intra and interrelationships, the setting, and relevant background information. Next to exposition is the rising action, which begins with an inciting incident or complication that triggers the ensuing series of events. Next to rising action is the climax, and this is the main turning point of the story, when all the events and emotions build up during the exposition and rising action come to a head. Naturally, these are the moments of greatest tension, conflict, and drama. The next to that is a falling action. In this stage, characters' actions resolve the story's central problem, leading to a resolution. And the last one is the denouement. The final plot element is the official completion of the goal, solution to the problem, and the end of the conflict. In the novella Chronicle of a Death Foretold, 1983, Gabriel Garcia Marquez uses a convoluted plot to describe the events leading up to the murder of Santiago Nazar, which has already taken place. Formalism is a movement of literary theory and criticism that became popular in the 20th century. There are different schools of formalism, including Russian formalism and New Criticism. The formalist approach to literature attempts to study the literary text as an isolated verbal entity. From the formalist perspective, the poetic language operates autonomously, independent of context. Along with the formal characteristics of a text, formalism investigates how the interaction of literary devices within a text adds to its literariness. All, thank you for listening.